It's East Austin Caregivers. Southeast Austin Caregivers is a program as an outreach to elderly folks, but it's of interest to people of all ages. To learn more, stay with us on Austin Faith Dialogue.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, welcoming you to this edition of the show. And today we're going to be giving our attention to an outreach in East Austin to elderly folks. And there are a number of services rendered to persons across the metropolitan area in this regard, but in this particular case, Southeast Austin Caregivers has a very special and unique ministry. We welcome to the program the Executive Director of Southeast Austin Caregivers, Tony Hernandez Salazar.
Thank you.
And the President of the Board of the organization, and that is Guadalupe Martinez. Ladies, it's just great having you here. And I think that I'll start, I believe, Tony, I'm going to start with Guadalupe because you've been with this organization from the beginning. You
Yes.
can tell us the history, how it all started. And why don't you do that now, if you would, please?
Well, we kind of started because Austin Metropolitan Ministries came to us, to the church where I worked at St. Julia, and they said that they thought we needed to start a the caregiver group in East Austin because there wasn't one there, and they had already helped start other caregiver groups in different areas of Austin. Mm-hmm. Austin has 9 caregiver groups, I think, now. Right. So we got together and started having meetings. We had our meetings at Seton East. They allowed us to have the meetings there in their boardroom, and we started going to the different churches in the area to talk to them about the caregiver group and how they could help us. And from there, you know, we expanded, got more people. We tried to get each church to send 2 delegates from each church to come to the board meetings, and we came up, you know, with the ideas of what to do and guidelines for the director, what her job description would be, or his, as the case would be.
Okay. So there were the caregiver organizations elsewhere in Austin, but not in that particular locality.
No, not in East Austin.
And you felt that there was enough of a need there for such an organization?
Yes, yes. We kind of did a survey. Each of us that were delegates to the board, we did a survey in our own church areas to see how many elderly we had, how many were homebound, how many were able to get around but didn't have transportation and things like that, so that we could kind of get it all together and compile it to show that there was a great need for a Southeast Austin caregiver group.
Okay, now let's turn to the present, Tony. This was the way it started. Define the need. Why, from your standpoint as the director, is there such an organization? What would be missing if there weren't?
Well, for example, health is a very important issue with our program. We have, for example, dietitians that are volunteers on board who will go to the homes and talk to the elderly about health issues. You know that especially in Hispanic community with diabetes and high blood pressure, we wanted our elderly to be aware of these issues, and a lot of them that I have talked to were very concerned about having to go and move out of their homes and move to a nursing home, and then what would they do? And so we figured that we'd give them an incentive by helping them by sending volunteers out to their homes to talk to them about issues such as health. And transportation, of which we have volunteers that provide transportation to take them to their doctor's appointments, to take them to the grocery store. I mean, we're available most of the time to be able to render the services that they need.
Okay, so you're talking about very practical kinds of things that are
Yes.
needed.
Well, it's practical for us, but for an elderly, it's not. I mean, for example, let me give you, we had a call one time that this lady had dropped her glasses and she couldn't see very well. Well, she could remember where she had her our number logged on her phone, so she pressed the number and called us and asked us if we could send a volunteer to come and pick her glasses up because she couldn't see where she had dropped her glasses. So I immediately called someone, and they were willing to go out, and they found her glasses for her, and she was just so grateful.
Well, now, is this a need because a number of these elderly folks don't have family around to help them do things like
A
that?
majority of them do not have family, or the family that they did have there have moved on, moved to another state, to another city, and unfortunately we do have cases of which the families just don't have time and they don't want to listen, so that's where we come in. We want to be there to help them find volunteers who will take the time to adopt a grandparent, we could say.
I see. Instead of adopting a child, you adopt a grandparent.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the kind of work that you do, before the show you were telling me that you visit 150 people every month?
Well, we now have 150 recipients in our program, and I make it a point to make a personal visit to meet with each one, and I spend a good hour because I don't want to just go in and say, hi, you know, so-and-so, how are you doing, and that's it. You know, I take time to look around the house, see what their needs are, see if they have food in their pantry, see what the conditions are that they're in at that time. We had a very severe case last Christmas of a lady who was not only being abused, but she had transients living in the back of her home. She had an electrical fire going on when I had gotten there, of which it was a scary situation, but I was just so grateful, and I just thank God that He had, in my heart, there was some reason I knew that I needed to go back to see her again. So there are times that I'll make more than one visit per day to the same person.
You know, it sort of makes you wonder, doesn't it, that you have these intuitions or at the right time, at the right place.
Exactly. And it was an electrical fire. Definitely.
Wow. Well, now, meanwhile, back at the board, Madam President,
Yes.
tell us what you do, what the board does to facilitate this service.
Well, we have meetings every other month, and we get together and we go over the budget. We go over, you know, some of the cases that Tony has visited, some of the new people that may have come on board. We decide how we're going to go about generating more money and what we need to do to get the word out to the community about Southeast Austin and to see if we can generate some money for it.
So you help, I mean, you're primarily into it to help fund the program, help get the word out. Do you help recruit volunteers as well?
Yes, the majority of the volunteers that we get, as well as the recipients, are from the churches which are members of our coalition, and they turn in names of new people to us sometimes. They also will turn in names of volunteers from their church that are willing to help with the elderly and are interested in doing something to help us. So,
okay, let's name those churches that are supporting you.
it's St. Julia's Church, Cristo Rey Church, Dolores Church, and then there's El Buen Seminatario. There is
Emmanuel Methodist Church,
and
Santa Barbara Mission.
well, it's a church now, St. Barbara Church, Catholic Church, and then there's Go Valley Methodist.
Go Valley
and
United Methodist Church.
And it seems to me, I'd seen in your literature that the El Buen Pastor congregation was working along with Manos de Cristo in that area, and that is also a connecting link.
Yes.
Yes, they were also members.
All right, we had Manos de Cristo on not too long ago as, I think, one of the excellent outreaches in a variety of ways in East Austin.
Well, we have a lot of collaboration going on in our community.
Yeah. Give me an example of that collaboration.
A group called GANG, which is a young group called Giving Adolescents New Goals, of which I've collaborated with them as far as, like, I could call them to come and do some yard work for an elderly person, paint houses, attend any functions, help us in any way that they can. We also have groups like LCRA, Lower Colorado River Authority,
Yes.
who's a big supporter of ours. Now we have St. David's Episcopal Church, who has sent us a board member and has also helped us financially. We have many people in the community and around all of Austin who have taken the time to join our program and to help us as much as they could.
You also said that, as you mentioned, the churches. These churches are made up to a large extent of Hispanic folks,
Yes.
and that your group that you serve is what percentage would you say?
I would say 85% is Hispanic.
So you really need to be able to communicate bilingually.
Yes, you do. Especially me when I go into the homes. A lot of times when they need to go to the doctor, I try to look for bilingual. Although I'll take, anybody that just cares and wants to help to do volunteer work. But most of our recipients do not speak English.
We're soon to be coming up on a break here, and before we do, I want to have the number that some people can call if they want to perhaps either volunteer or if they need your service. Repeat that number for us, if you would.
Okay, the number is 472-0997.
Okay. That rings into your office.
Directly into my office.
Where is your office?
It's located at Emmanuel United Methodist Church, of which we have an in-kind donation there office on 200 Brushy Street. It's right off of IH 35, just a block away from Cesar Chavez.
Okay. By the way, it just dawned on me. The airport opens out that way next May, right? That's going to change the complexion of that community in a number of ways, I would guess. Have you seen some effects of that already? Besides the traffic?
Traffic-wise? No, I haven't seen anything else.
Yeah. Well, it's an area of the city, too, that, as you say, it was almost like the last to have a caregiver's service provided. And when we come back, I'd like to just reflect with you about why that may have been the last and why it is that the elderly need special care in Austin, Texas. And I know before the show you were telling me that you had to go to the city council to get some attention about this. And I know that you work for the state. I'm just putting all this together before you did this, and there are services by the state to the elderly, so why is this needed? And that's enough to think about while we take a break, isn't it?
Sure is.
Okay, remind me of everything that we're going to talk about. And you folks stay with us, and we'll come back to learn more about the Southeast Austin Caregivers. Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where today we are focusing upon the Southeast Austin Caregivers program. And during the first half, we were privileged to welcome then, and as we will again welcome, Tony Hernandez Salazar, Executive Director, and the President of the Board, Guadalupe Martinez. Guess what? During the break, you were saying something. You were whispering sweet nothings in my ear here. Guadalupe, I want the whole public to hear what you were saying about why it's important for people to stay in their own homes, I think you were commenting.
Okay, I think one of our main goals as a group is to try and keep the elderly in their home and independent as long as possible so that they don't have to go into a nursing home. Because these people get attached to their homes, they have raised their families there, they have sent them off to school to have a better job than they did, and a lot of times in doing that, they get left behind by themselves because the families grow, they go off to another city to get a better job and all that. And so what we try to do is help them remain at home because they have so many mementos, you know, they have pictures, they have so many things that they want to stay around. So that's one of our main goals, is to try to help them to stay in their house where they can still, you know, survive and be there, but also know that there's someone out there that they can pick up the phone and call and say, I have an appointment at the doctor's Monday morning at 10. Can you send a volunteer to take us? We take them also to the beauty shop, not just, you know, things that are like medical needs or things, but also, you know, so that they can go to the beauty shop, they can go grocery shopping and things like that, so that they can remain at home as long as possible.
Which is a service to the public, because every time somebody goes into a nursing home,
Yes.
it becomes more of a drain, tax-wise and otherwise.
Yes.
Well, I think that one of the points that you were making earlier on is that, or implying at least, is a matter of dignity.
Yes.
I mean, to go to the hairdresser, people say, well, that's not essential. Take somebody to the doctor, but not the hairdresser. Well, what do you think about that? You think that's a necessity, Tony?
Oh, definitely, especially for an elderly person. I mean, I've had the pleasure of taking a lady that I remember quite clearly to get her hair done, and I mean, all she could talk about was she was going to get her hair done, and she was so excited because she was going to get to talk to people there because she didn't have anybody to talk to at home. And I waited there for her, and that's something that's really wonderful about our program. We have this personal approach, you know, like the cliche, reach out and touch somebody. Well, we really do. We go the full 100, you know, miles for this elderly person. I mean, we'll take them all the way in, we'll sit with them, we'll talk with them until they're through with what they need to do. But I remember that lady when she finished getting her hair, got her hair done, she goes, well, how do I look? And I said, oh, you just look so beautiful. And she really did. And she was like on cloud nine. She called me about 5 times that day to tell me, you know, thank you for taking me. She says, I feel so good.
Huh?
Yeah. I mean, she even, when she walked out, she was walking straight. I mean, she had her head up high. I mean, it was beautiful. It was a wonderful experience.
I want you to know that we once did a program on Austin Faith Dialogue called Hair Therapy. And among other things, we noted that hairstylists will oftentimes get more confession than ministers or priests. And we also found out that, you know, it has to do with a person's self-image and how they feel about themselves.
That's right.
Yes.
So that kind of service. Now, you work for the state. And although you weren't in services for the elderly, there are protective services for the elderly the state provides. So why do we need your private sector group here if the state provides these kinds of things?
Well, because there's a lot of elderly out there that we don't touch upon, that are not touched upon through the state. I mean, like I was saying right now with Southeast Caregivers, we go that extra mile to do something for someone, to take them to the doctor and to be there. I mean, we've had people at times have surgeries at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I have wonderful volunteers who are angels who will get up, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning to take that elderly person to be there with them.
Really? Where do these angels come from?
They come from all over Austin,
Well,
and not
name
just
some
necessarily.
places.
Well, from the different churches, I can say I really feel that St. David's Episcopal has been a real blessing. We were on the verge of unfortunately thinking about having to close our doors
Oh, really?
financially, and they came through. They sent a director to be on our board, and her name's Marilyn Smolensky, and we're just so proud because she's just a wonderful person. All of our board members are, as far as I'm concerned, are angels. They have given so much of their time, so much of their devotion.
Well, now, wait a minute. Guadalupe's sitting next to you, right? She's the president of the board.
She's
Does that-
top angel.
Top angel. Okay.
What is it? An archangel? Then
Yeah.
there's, you know.
Well, at first I didn't recognize you. I'm sorry, Guadalupe. Now I see your halo. Tell us about what you get out of this. Why are you, you know, you told us how you originally were involved, but what motivates you to stay involved the way you are?
Well, in the first place, I was a nurse for 27 years, and I worked on a geriatrics floor. And I loved working with the elderly. And ever since I was 7, I wanted to be a nurse, and helping other people has always been one of my things. I love to help other people. And to see these people, you know, be able to stay in their own home and not worry about that they're going to get put into a nursing home, because that's one of their main worries. They get a certain age and they start thinking, you know, pretty soon they're going to put us in a nursing home.
Yeah.
So I love working with the elderly, the elderly and the very young. I love working with those kind of people. So, you know, that's how I got started in it, is the fact that I've always done community work, so to speak, and caring for other people, because as a nurse, that's what I did at the hospital.
Right.
And then I worked at St. Julia in the parish social ministry, and I helped the people there, not just the elderly, but anyone that needed help. You know, they would come to my office and get help with clothes, food, help with rent and water and light and all of that kind of stuff. So.
You said you'd worked with Patrick Flood originally with Austin Metropolitan
With Austin
Ministries.
Metropolitan Ministries because he came to our community and you know, tried to help us start the caregiver group, but we also had other meetings with him, with Austin Metropolitan Ministries and with racial issues in our community and things like that. So that's how I met Patrick.
It seems to me that's one of the things that AMM has done well, is to identify places in the city which may be the last to get services and where
Right.
you may not have the same kind of motivation or leadership to get it going.
Yes.
And so that's something we're proud to also highlight on this show otherwise. Now, the city. Let's talk about the city of Austin, the capital city of Texas. How much service is rendered to the elderly by the Austin city government? I mean, shouldn't they be rendering this so that your service isn't needed?
Well, I'm sure they are.
I mean, you said you went to city council. Why did you go to the city
Well, there was we had seen in the paper, there was an article about a block grant, CDBG, which is
Okay.
Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
And we decided to go forward and lobby on behalf of not just Southeast Austin caregivers, but on behalf of the elderly in the East Austin community. We saw that there wasn't any money out there for the elderly to continue services. So we just, like they say, took the bull by
Took the bull by the horns.
that.
Yes. Not the longhorn, just the regular.
That's right. And we went forward, went before the city council several times, and it's wonderful. We were able to get $100,000 of that money put into for services for the elderly in East Austin.
And that there was a short-term grant, though, and
Yes.
what's the status now?
Well, the status now is, you know, the money is out there. Other nonprofits have received those monies, and it's great because they have wonderful services also that they're providing. But you know, it's $100,000 really wasn't enough. You know, there needs to be much more than $100,000 out for that community, especially for the elderly. And our community from Southeast Austin, the area that we serve, is not just directly in East Austin, but we go all the way out to Del Valley. Our services are
see.
out to Del Valley, out to all those little country roads, you know, Ben White, from East 7th.
Now, do people call you and say, I'm a person that could use your services? I mean, do you get phone calls from
Yes.
folks that have heard about it and say,
Yes.
I'm alone, I need somebody to come see
Yes.
me, that sort of thing?
And they've been referred to us usually by other agencies, even by city agencies.
Okay, so you do get referrals from the city?
Yes, we do.
And the state as well?
Yes.
I see. I think it was Robert Browning who wrote, Grow Old With Me, that the best is yet to be. And I have thought about the fact that that point of view, it's kind of a rare one today. Growing old doesn't seem to be what people look forward to doing and becoming
Right.
elderly. And I'm just wondering if your ministry is a witness to the fact that the end of life or the latter years of life are meant to be enjoyed and honored as much as any other time of life. I'd like to have growing out of your experience through this Caregivers, if you've had people say to you, life is fuller for me now, it's more meaningful. Maybe that spiritually something has happened as a result of this, not just taking them to the grocery store or the beauty shop, but what spiritually can you see is happening with folks through your ministry?
I can see, especially during Christmas time, when that time of the month, I would say, would probably be the most depressing. But for our recipients, it's the most happiest time of their life, because we have a school, Covington Middle School, who one of the teachers there calls me every year and has personal gifts made for our elderly clients. And they look forward to this. And it's beautiful because this is a time that our volunteers will even come out in double force to be able to witness to these people. Because a lot of the elderly out there have said, I really would like to go to church, but, I don't really belong to any church. And, well, what do you think? And I'll say, well, we've got volunteers who just tell me where you want to go and we'll take you. We've got people out there who want to. And there have been a lot of elderly people who have come to the churches and who've come to know God, who really had already given up on life.
Yeah, okay. Well, we touch at the very end on probably what may be the most important part of it, and would like to express thanks to the community, to you, Tony Hernandez Salazar, for your work. And to you, Guadalupe Martinez, now that I recognize you as an angel, we'll have you back because we've been touched by you. And we're glad to have you folks with us again today, and hope you'll be with us next week. I'm Richard Thompson of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, wishing you peace.